4 years ago today, I nursed my 7-month-old baby for the last time without knowing that it would be the last time. I put all my children to bed, per usual, got our clothes ready for the next day for work and school. And I went to bed not knowing that that would be the last night that I had with my children for a very long time. The next morning I woke up, business per usual. I had 5 young children to get ready for school, for daycare. I had to get ready for work. I worked at 8 to 5 schedule, Monday through Friday. So mornings were typically very chaotic. I was waking up really early. I had to nurse the baby, get her diaper bag ready, get the kids dressed, get them breakfast. You know, it was rush. I got the children to daycare at 7:30 a.m. And I don't think I even kissed them goodbye that morning, which was very typical of me because I was always in a rush. I was in such a rush all the time that I didn't soak up those small moments. I didn't appreciate, being able to kiss them bye in the morning. I don't even think I said I love you. I think I just checked them in. I dropped the baby off in her carrier, and the older kids went off into their assigned classroom and they took off. I do remember the last sight I had of the daycare because I saw my son sitting in the window eating his cereal, and they took off to work. The drive was about 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes without traffic. And I pulled up to work. I took my breast pump with me. I had about 2 nursing breaks that morning, and I had to leave work early because I had a court hearing with their father. I drove myself to the courthouse, and I was accompanied by 2 of my friends, and I was arrested by ICE at that court hearing. I remember when my ICE agent tapped on my shoulder and I turned around and I saw him. I knew instantly he was there to arrest me. And that was the beginning of my life being turned upside down. It all happened so fast. When they arrested me, the first thing that I said was, what about my kids? What's gonna happen to my kids? They're all in daycare. I'm supposed to pick them up. What's gonna happen to my baby? She's nursing. What's she gonna do at night? She needs me. And the agent said, well, what does she do when you're at work? And I said, well, the daycare feeds her a bottle. The daycare feeds her the milk that I pump. And they said, well, if she takes a bottle, she'll take formula. She'll be okay without you. And they whisked me away into the vehicle. They drove me to the ICE detention center where I was booked. One of the first things that I asked for was a breast pump because my breasts were engorged by the time that I arrived at the detention center. I was told that the jail would not provide a breast pump, but that my family could potentially bring one in for me. So when I called my mother drove 2.5 hours to Cache County Jail with a breast pump. And when she arrived, she was told that we were not allowed to admit the breast pump for me. I then asked to see the nurse at the jail, and I explained my situation to her, that I was a nursing mother and I was in a lot of pain. And the nurse was the only person I came across throughout this journey, throughout my deportation journey, that showed any type of compassion to me, because I remember she asked me, well, where's your baby? And I said, she's probably with my family. I don't know where she is. I haven't spoken to anyone. And she asked me if I was being deported. I told her that I would be deported, and she said, but what's gonna happen to your baby? And she got teary-eyed with me, and I said, I don't know. She told me she couldn't provide me with anything for the pain, that I just had to wait for my breasts to dry out on their own. She encouraged me to take hot showers to relieve the milk on its own. I wasn't provided with breast pads either, so it was leaking through my uniform for the first 2 to 3 days, which was really demeaning around the the male officers. It was embarrassing. So I tried to stay in my room, in my jail cell, for the majority of the time. I spent 10 days in the ICE Detention Center. Well, 9 days at the Cache County Jail. By the time that I saw a judge and I signed a deportation order. I wasn't told when I would be transferred or deported after I signed my deportation order. They came in at about 4 a.m. one night and they told me to get my stuff ready, that I was being moved. I had no idea where I was going. I wasn't told anything, so I just packed up my belongings and I was put into a holding cell with about 20 to 25 other inmates that were being moved or deported that day. We kind of pieced 2 and 2 together that we were going to be transferred to another facility or possibly deported that day. We were driven to the Salt Lake City International Airport, where we were driven to the back of the airport, and there was a huge private ICE plane that was going to be transporting us, and there was officers lined up, waiting to escort us with their guns. It felt very surreal, like something out of a movie. We were shackled from waist to feet. We couldn't move. We really weren't much of a threat. I remember as I boarded the plane, looking back to the mountains, the Salt Lake City mountains, because I knew that's the last time that I would ever see them. And I just remember feeling the sigh as I climbed up the steps, and I heard the chains clinking on the metal steps as I was climbing. When I boarded the plane was full of men in red, green, and blue jail outfits. There was about 5 women, including myself. The moment that I walked in, there was a lot of catcalling, a lot of sexual remarks made towards me and the other women. We were sat at the very front of the plane. There wasn't any officers between the women or the men. So it was a very uncomfortable ride. We were then flown to each surrounding state in Utah. And we had no idea where we were. Every time we would land, they would board more passengers and we would ask them, hey, where are we? Oh, you're in Nevada. Oh, you're in New Mexico, etc. So we flew to every surrounding state until we landed in Texas. It was a very long flight. The entire time that we were in flight, we were shackled from hands, feet, and waist. We were not provided with any water, with access to the restrooms, and we were not provided any food. It was a very long ride. Once we landed in Texas, we were split up into groups, women and men. The women were driven to a camp. I don't know what the camp was called or where it was. It was in the middle of a desert. It was very much like the camp you see in the movie Holes. It was out in the middle of the deserts with barbed wire and bunk beds and just complete overcrowding. I remember asking to use the phone because I had put 2 and 2 together that I was getting closer and closer to the US and Mexico border, so I wanted to call my family. I was denied access to a phone, and I was told that I could not communicate with my family for safety reasons while I was en route. So the entire time I was very afraid because I didn't know where I was going or when, and if I was going to be dropped off in Mexico, I didn't have any arrangements. I didn't know where I was going to go, who I was going to call. I had heard a lot of horror stories about kidnappings and cartel and violence against women. So I was very, very afraid. The next morning we woke up and we were put on a van, on a bus. It was like a jail bus, the type of buses that you see in the movies, and we were driven to the border. At the border, we were walked in a line, both women and men. We were again completely shackled, and we were walked to the bridge where we signed some paperwork. We wrote our names down with a pencil on a lined sheet of paper, and this was to document our crossing with Mexican officials. So Mexican officials were waiting here, and I'm here signing, and then ICE is here. And I just remember thinking, like, is this the document that's going to really capture my crossing? And if it gets lost, is my family ever going to know that I was here? If something happens to me, how long will it take them to know that I was here and that this is where I was dropped off? Once we crossed the border, we were told that we were free. We walked the bridge at the Juarez border. And I remember I was with another woman from Salt Lake City, and we just clung to each other. We were really afraid. As soon as we stepped off the bridge, we ran. We ran into a small office that was like a little center that we were told would give us bus passes and temporary identification in case we didn't have any. And we ran into that office and we ran into the bathroom because we were scared. We didn't know what to do. I had been dropped off with a small 40-pound bag that my mom had given to ICE, and I was the only prisoner or inmate, detainee, whatever, that had belongings with them. There was people that had been dropped off with nothing but the clothes on their back. In that bag, my mom had packed my cell phone, and when I pulled out my cell phone, by the grace of God, it had 5% battery, and I called my mom. She used the only number that I had memorized. And my mom's phone number was the only number that I knew by heart. And I called her. She picked up in 2 rings. And I remember when I heard her voice, I broke down crying like a little girl in complete fear. And I just remember saying, "Mom, estoy en Juarez." And her response was, "Hijo de su chingada madre. Hijo, quítate la computadora, es emergencia. Quítate. Necesito comprarle un boleto a tu hermana que está en Juarez." She was gonna buy me a plane ticket to fly me out of Juarez, and she told me to get to the airport as soon as possible. And I told her, "Okay, I'm with this other girl. She's also from Salt Lake. Can you call her husband and let her know she's here with me and she's okay?" And she did, and my mom and her husband, connected in Salt Lake, and they were working together to buy us both plane tickets. She told me to catch a cab to the airport. And I had heard horror stories about the cabs. I was told that the cabs would kidnap us and take us for ransom, that they were connected to the cartel. But we didn't really have any other option. So we walked out. We ran to the first cab that we saw, and we jumped in, and we hoped for the best. And we told him to take us to the airport, and he did, without any issues. He charged us $40, and we made it to the airport in Juarez. When I walked into the airport, it was the first time I could kind of breathe a little bit, because I thought, well, it's the airport. Airports are pretty safe, right? Nothing's gonna happen to us in the airport. And my mom bought me a plane ticket to fly to Vallarta, and I remember boarding the plane, just exhausted. At this point, I had been traveling in shackles for 3 days. I was sleep deprived. I was a mess. I had no idea where I was going, what I was going to do. It dawned on me that I was homeless and carless and without my children and with no family nearby, and that I was alone in this new country. My life changed overnight. On February 1st, I was arrested by ICE, and I landed in Mexico on Mexican soil on February 10th. So in the course of 10 days, my life changed completely. I lost everything.